Everything just feels more expensive, and there's a good reason for that. It is more expensive. Groceries, gas, kids' clothing, heating bills, it all adds up so fast. I am laser focused on getting my Christmas shopping done almost immediately and taking advantage of all of the sales over Black Friday and Cyber Monday, but it still seems like it wasn't enough this year. American families are really feeling the pinch, and young people as well. A big part of this strain is, of course, thanks in no part to the economic chaos created by Donald Trump and carried forward by the Republicans in Congress. Anyone who has set foot in a grocery store or a mall recently knows the skyrocketing prices on everything. We know that a huge part of the increased cost is due to this erratic tariff policy, which is costing families on average of an additional $4,000 every single year. Additionally, our healthcare system, which is exploiting people and the most vulnerable, is opening gaps to allow third parties to come in and drive up costs at every possible turn. Families shouldn't have to feel guilt or worry when they're just trying to make the season brighter for their kids. On top of that, Republicans have taken aim at the very programs that help women and families survive tough moments like this. Programs like SNAP aren't luxuries. They actually put food on the table, a necessity for every family. Gutting them, like Republicans did in their so-called One Big Beautiful Bill this summer, makes women, children, and families more vulnerable and gives parents less wiggle room in already tight budgets. And to make matters worse, we are about to plummet off of a healthcare cliff. The ACA premium tax credits that keep care affordable for millions of Americans are set to expire in just a few weeks. These credits are a lifeline for so many families. In my district alone, over 27,000 people rely on them to keep their health care within reach. But unless Republicans join us to extend them, these families will be forced to make an unthinkable choice, whether they go on to keep care for their families, or, as we know, many will do, choose to go without. We know that this disproportionately impacts small business owners, older Americans who have retired and are not yet eligible for Medicare, and young people who have aged out of their parents' health insurance but don't yet have a job where they can get health insurance on their own. It's unacceptable, and it's another stressor congressional Republicans are creating for families at a tough time of year. I always say we make choices. We don't have to live like this, and Republicans and Trump are clearly making a choice right now to put their billionaire friends over hardworking, everyday American families. It's unacceptable. We're here today, and you are here to help us elevate the stories of families, individuals across the United States of America that are feeling this pinch, and to try and tell our Republican colleagues what we want them to do about it before it's too late. So thank you again for being here. I'm going to turn it over to Representative Yasmin Ansari, who has some welcoming remarks as well. She is the president of her freshman class, and so proudly represents the district in Arizona, where she's from.
Thank you so much. Thank you to Vice Chair Spolten. Thank you to all of you for being here. We really, really appreciate it. Of course, thank you to the Democratic Women's Caucus for hosting this conversation. It is really an honor to be here with leaders who understand that lowering costs is not just a talking point for campaign season, but it's literally what our constituents sent us here to do. Across the country and in my fast-growing district of Phoenix, Arizona, families are being squeezed in every direction. Food costs are up, housing prices have skyrocketed, and thanks to Republican inaction, millions of Americans receive their health care insurance premiums double and triple or worse. All of these costs are felt more than ever during the holiday season. While families are stretching every dollar, Republicans in Congress just keep stretching the truth. They say that they care about lowering costs. They passed and President Trump signed massive cuts to SNAP, an essential program that millions of women and children across the United States rely on to put food on the table. They push proposals to cut Medicaid and critical housing support. The only thing that they have shown that they truly care about is massive tax cuts for the ultra wealthy and for corporations, all while inflation crushes families and we're facing a number of layoffs that might soon surpass the 2008 financial crisis. Democrats, on the other hand, have taken bold action to lower costs for women and families. We've capped insulin for seniors. We passed the most significant climate and clean energy investment in history last Congress, which promised to lower energy bills, reduce air pollution, and create good-paying jobs in communities like mine. I was on the Phoenix City Council back then and saw firsthand how those investments coming to our cities literally helped us change people's lives tangibly on a daily basis. We expanded subsidies on the ACA that have helped a record number of Americans afford coverage. But as soon as they came to power, Republicans have been attacking these programs left and right. That's why we're not giving up this fight. Lowering costs requires taking on powerful interests who profit from the status quo. It means taking on big pharma, which has kept prices high for decades while making record profits. It means challenging hospital monopolies and corporate landlords who raise prices simply because they can. And it means holding oil and gas companies accountable when they use global crises as excuses to gouge consumers. I'm proud to be chairing the Congressional Progressive Caucus's Lowering Costs Task Force, where we will be building the progressive vision for lowering costs and preparing to pass bold economic policy when we win back the majority and have power in 2027. We are committed to building a system where people, not corporations, come first, and we understand that women, and particularly women of color, are hit the hardest when costs rise and wages stagnate. So we're also fighting for universal child care, paid family and medical leave, affordable housing, and protections against corporate landlords. We need lower prescription drug costs for everyone, not just seniors, and we need strong antitrust enforcement so families aren't at the mercy of corporate monopolies. Really look forward to hearing from our speakers today. And with that, I will pass things on to the wonderful chairwoman of the Democratic Women's Caucus, Teresa Hernandez.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being here. And we labeled this Trump the Grinch is stealing for women and families this holiday season. And as you can see from our poster, it points out that jobs, we're losing jobs. And we'll learn some of those numbers a little later from Sarah. Healthcare is being destroyed by Trump and the Republicans as they cut Medicaid, as they refuse to extend those tax credits, as they destroy rural healthcare. Cancer research and research into women's issues is especially troubling. Breast cancer research, things that affect women deeply, are being canceled and hurt. And then how cool can you be with regards to the cuts that they did to SNAP in their big, beautiful bill that is anything but. And then that they now want to make it even harder in this Christmas season to access nutrition programs. Using hunger as a political tool is the opposite of goodwill. It is the opposite of moral clarity. It is only done by somebody whose heart is too small, 10 times too small. I think it might have been 2 times too small, because Trump the Grinch is indeed a very good one. But the way we look at these is really to hear directly from you. And that's why we call it storytellers, because we think that the Democratic Women's Caucus, our job is to both be the storytellers, story makers, and listeners to the stories. Because it is your stories which will guide us as we develop those policies, that Representative Ansari mentioned, right, of how do we develop those policies to build a good life. And that's what we need to do. And so the first storyteller we're going to listen to is Luna Rosado. And Luna Rosado is part of Moms Rising. We love working with Moms Rising because Moms moms make these decisions. Moms know how hard it is to make those healthcare decisions that you must make for your 3 children. Moms know how hard it is to be able to be stretched in both ways, and the work that you're doing both in learning how to be a passionate advocate for not just your family, but as a certified nursing aide, and working towards a degree in social services. So thank you for coming here to share your story. Luna.
And thank you all for having me here today. My name is Luna Rosado, and I live in Plainville, Connecticut. And I am a proud member of, as Teresa stated, Mom Rising, and a single mom of three. I do want to thank you all, lawmakers here, for being champions for working families as myself. I truly appreciate the opportunity to share the enormous strain moms like me are facing this holiday season, and I take this very personally. And the cost of living continues to skyrocket, and the programs that help us make ends meet are under attack. As a single mom, I work extremely hard every day to provide for my kids and serve my community. I've been working since I was 15 years old, and this is very sentimental for me, so I do apologize. um, for many years, I've held jobs supporting the elderly and those in need. Today, I do work multiple jobs, and those are as an insurance agent, a certified nursing assistant in a nursing facility, and an ID caregiver for a client who is homebound. Assisting with activities of daily living like showering and eating. This allows her to remain at home rather than in a more costly facility. But despite all my hard work, my wages simply have not kept up with the soaring cost of food, healthcare, housing, utilities, and childcare. At times, I've also been limited in what shifts I can take because childcare is so difficult to find and afford. It is so frustrating to juggle multiple jobs while caring for young kids and still have to worry about how I'm going to put healthy food on the table and keep the lights on. At times, I've also been limited in what shifts I can take. I'm sorry, I lost track. Sometimes I do have to drive for Lyft and Uber to fill in the gaps. It is exhausting and leaves me with almost no time for myself. And without SNAP, Medicaid, and federal housing assistance, I have no idea how we make it, which is why I'm here today. And because of Medicaid, when my children or I need medical care, I don't have to choose between buying groceries or paying for a doctor's visit. Recently, I went through a major health challenge, and without Medicaid, I could not have afforded any treatment, especially because during that time, I also experienced a significant financial setback. After that experience, I became even more committed to eating a healthy diet, and SNAP is essential to myself and my family for this. And because I am a SNAP recipient, I was able to attain my medical assistant certification at no cost. As a mom, I'm filled with anxiety and how the looming cuts of Medicaid and SNAP will affect my family. And the realization that millions of families are losing the support that keeps them afloat so billionaires can pay lower taxes really gut wrenching. It seems that some lawmakers don't understand the harm their actions are causing. For example, last month when Trump fought to make sure SNAP benefits didn't go out during the shutdown, that created a crisis for my family and so many others. My mind immediately jumped to my elderly neighbors, many of whom are living alone and have chronic illnesses. I had to make sure they had enough food to get through these difficult times. Families shouldn't be left to figure it out while lawmakers undermine the programs that make it possible for us to put food on the table. Right now, so many single moms like me are trying to make the holidays happen for kids while carrying the fear that of this economic chaos and what it will mean for us. But I'm determined to build a brighter path for my children. In fact, I just enrolled in an academic success plan to pursue a degree in social services because I do want to serve my community more deeply and advocate for policies rooted in support and opportunity and not cruelty. I'm committed to fight for the investments in healthcare, nutrition, elder care, and childcare our families and our economy urgently need. I'm extremely grateful to everyone here today for being in that fight. Thank you. That is all for me today.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah.
They just gave this to me.
Yeah. I'll provide a bridge while she finds her spot. Thank you so much for your testimony. Representative Tlaib, who I will give an own introduction for, is a fierce mom and advocate.
I'm the eldest of 14, so I grew up with a lot of, complex challenges and so forth. But the welcoming a good family, and I think even those that might not be wealthy deserve to have that good family experience. It really has shaped the person that I am today. But I'm also the co-founder of the Commercial Loans Caucus, which really works a lot with a lot of the members of the Caucus. So I'm here to share, to invite, to welcome Chloe Schaefer. Chloe is a college student here in DC, attending George Washington University. She's also a member of the Pillars of Tomorrow. She's pursuing a degree in American Studies. So welcome, Chloe. Thank you.
All of you guys. And before I begin, I'd like to thank Voters of Tomorrow for giving me the opportunity to speak before you all today. I'd also like to specifically shout out Vice Chairwoman Schulten and sorry, I've looked up to both of you for such a long time. So when I saw you guys on the email, I was like, oh my gosh. So it's an honor to be in discussion with you today. My name is Chloe Schaefer, and I'm a 19-year-old college student at the George Washington University, where I study American Studies and French. I grew up in Southern California and was raised by parents who worked so hard to provide my sister and I a good life. Somehow, on my father's single salary as a public school teacher, the four of us enjoyed family vacations, theme park season passes, and dinners out almost every week. I still have no idea how they did that. But things are so different now. My parents have changed jobs a lot since I was in high school, which was only like a couple years ago. But now, because of their financial situation, beyond what I get from GW and what they can charge us for, and the occasional fight back and stuff, I almost entirely support myself as a 19-year-old. I take out federal student loans, and this year was even granted a Pell Grant, which I am so grateful for. So then when Trump passed the so-called One Big Beautiful Bill, I was really scared. Scared for what that means as someone who relies on government grants and loans to pay for my education, especially as someone who one day aspires to work in public service, which we all know is famously well paid. No, it's okay. It scares me too. The depletion of the income-driven repayment plan for student loans is something that really concerns me. And if I didn't have my loans and my Pell Grant, I'd have to make very difficult and different decisions about what my current life looks like and what my life will look like after I graduate. Being 19 years old and living in the nation's capital, I see glimpses every day of the life I hope to someday live. I want to have the freedom to work somewhere that brings me fulfillment, the freedom to continue living in this city that I love post-grad, and the freedom to enjoy all the amazing experiences that this city has to offer. Economic security will provide me with that freedom. But if my Pell Grant was ripped away from me or I was no longer able to take out my student loans, I would lose everything that I have worked so hard for. And it's not just the cost of paying for college that Trump has made more difficult. The cost of everything's gone up, as we all know. Groceries are expensive, and I don't know what I would do if my loans and grants didn't cover my student housing. I needed new boots for the winter season and new sneakers since both were visibly falling apart, and there went nearly $150. For someone paying for all of these things from the money I make working internships, it's really hard. And thanks to Trump's tariffs, the costs of all goods have also gone up in price, meaning that I need to be very strategic about what I can get my family and friends for Christmas. And I really like giving gifts, so that really hurts me. Not only that, but my flights home for Thanksgiving and winter break this year cost a combined total of nearly $2,000. I booked a $900 flight back home a couple weeks before Thanksgiving to spend the holidays with my family. Spending that money to have me home for the holidays was a huge financial burden for my parents. In fact, 2 days later, when I asked them if they could buy me a birthday cake for my birthday party, they said they weren't sure if they could afford it because they had just spent $900 flying me home for the holidays. I did get the cake. In fact, they actually got me two, thanks to some generosity. But I still feel so much guilt that my parents have paid so much to have me home for the holidays, both for Thanksgiving and now in a week for the Christmas holiday. And no one should feel like their future could be stolen from them at any second. No one should have to choose between visiting home or paying their bills. And everyone deserves to spend the holidays with the people that they love and also have cake on their birthday. Thank you.
I
Thank
have to
you.
go to another meeting, but can I ask if you would put on the things that the Grinch is stealing from our future? Will you write education up there?
Yeah, of course.
I mean, it's the impact of stealing of house, right here.
Yeah.
Oh, well, just write it. Education, right, Pell Grants, so key. We cannot, your certifications and the work that you're doing in your social, to get your social services degree. We cannot move ahead. We don't have education. Thank you.
Of course.
I work for Aetna Medicare and I hear all the members calling in every single day. Whereas the over-the-counter benefits that we used to have, well, federal regulations have changed and unfortunately those have been removed from some of the plans. How come dental allowance went down? Oh, well, federal regulations went down and unfortunately those benefits had to get cut.
Yeah.
And unfortunately changes to Medicare. That's impactful for those communities as well.
Thank you.
That's very sad to see.
Thank you so much, Chloe. That was fantastic.
Thank you.
We've been joined by another fantastic member, Adalita Gahalva, and we'll have some time for Q&A in a second. But before we do that, the Honorable Deborah Ross is going to introduce Sarah Stepp for us.
Yes, and thank you, Chloe, so much for your testimony. I just met with voters for tomorrow in my district, which I encourage everybody to do. And it was so inspiring to have young people who are getting involved this early in life. And you're going to be sitting on this side of the table. So next, we're going to hear from Sarah Stepp. She's an economist for the Center for American Progress. And her research has spanned a range of policy issues with an emphasis on labor economics. She also worked on a variety of fiscal policy issues at the federal, state, and local levels in previous roles. Welcome, Sarah. We're excited to hear from you.
Thank you. Thank you for that introduction. I'd like to thank you all for convening this timely roundtable as families across the nation prepare for the holiday season. This year, Americans will be spending more on presents and holiday meals than ever before, and families, particularly those headed by Black women, are feeling this cost crunch the most. A decelerating labor market with rising unemployment, longer periods of job searching, and slower wage growth for women are hobbling families for the holidays. In the latest data from September, the price of groceries for a family of 4 choosing affordable options went up to $1,000 per month for the first time. While we wait for the November CPI and employment numbers next week, we know that months of rising unemployment and lower labor force participation are making it even more difficult to afford the additional holiday costs. There are 3 main inflation drivers caused by the Trump administration's policies. First, and the largest piece, are the price increases from the Trump administration's tariffs, which Jerome Powell mentioned in his speech today. Second are the reductions in FTC oversight on mergers and less aggressive enforcement activities, which will allow more food retail concentration to drive up grocery costs. And third is the ongoing impact of immigration policy that is likely to contribute to price pressures as labor supply is suppressed in important industries like agriculture, construction, and caregiving, particularly childcare. Food price inflation is at the top of mind, and looking at the latest available data from September shows that the roast beef at my family's table will be more than 18% higher than last year. And it's lucky for families that Santa prefers milk to coffee because that's up by 19%. Gifts will also be more expensive. Lending tree analysis of the Trump administration's tariffs show that holiday shoppers will spend an additional $132 this season overall, with gifts like electronics, clothing, and accessories driving those increases. And among those shoppers purchasing electronics, they'll spend another $186 on average compared to last season. Women tend to be responsible for making a dollar stretch at the grocery store and ensuring that gifts are purchased and wrapped. An estimated 85% of consumer spending is controlled by women. And the holiday shopping is obviously no exception. But women's wages haven't grown as quickly as men's. The wage gap widened for the second year in a row, and for women working full-time year-round to just 81 cents on the dollar of their male colleagues. My analysis shows that at current rates, women won't reach pay parity until 2071. Women can't afford to wait that long for equality. We need policies like the Paycheck Fairness Act, a strong EEOC and OFCCP to enforce anti-discrimination laws, and a higher minimum wage, as well as the elimination of sub-minimum wages. These policies would just be a starting place to claw back the $13,600 women lost last year to the wage gap. And considering that 45% of mothers are the breadwinners for their families, and among Black moms, that share jumps to 7 in 10, the effect of income gaps and rising unemployment is devastating for families. The labor force participation rate of Black women has dropped, and their unemployment rates have grown faster than that of any other racial group, from 5.4% in January to 7.5% in September. All groups are spending more time on the job market, and the typical unemployment duration for Black women and men exceeds that of other groups. Affordability is a function of price levels, but it's also a function of income. Many women are barely staying afloat with rising unemployment and unemployment insurance benefits that only replace a fraction of their prior earnings. The median unemployment duration for Black women grew to 18.5 weeks in September before the government shut down, so many of those women have already run out of their unemployment benefits in the 11 states that only provide them for 16 weeks or less. Many of those women worked in government jobs, which are being slashed haphazardly by the Trump administration. And affording necessities will become more difficult next year because of the Republican cuts to Medicaid, the ACA enhanced premium tax credits, and SNAP. Women have a high likelihood of using Medicaid and the ACA enhanced premium tax credits for their health insurance needs because they have lower incomes. Women are also more likely to work part-time than men because they're often caregivers for their families. A woman who misses work to take care of a sick kid during winter flu season or deals with volatile hours in the service industry might lose her SNAP benefits because she fell below the new work requirements, which were active in most states around November of this year, just in time for the holiday season. The Trump administration's actions, from tariffs to reduced FTC oversight to immigration policy, are all adding fuel to the inflationary fire, and women and families are really struggling to make the holidays feel normal for their loved ones this season. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your remarks. Your testimony really reminds us what is driving what we do here. I often representatives, we never forget that we serve the people. I think some of our Republican colleagues have forgotten that. This administration has forgotten that. When we look at something like the Affordable Care Act tax credits, which is supported by close to 80% of Americans, on average, including 77% of Republicans who want to see these extended. It is clear that this is something that the American people want us to do. Your voices connect us back to the constituents that we serve, and so we thank you so much. We are going to have time for Q&A now, and Samsari is going to be opening it up to and directing Q&A.
Great, thank you, and I will just echo everything the Congresswoman said. Appreciate all of your insights, and then say thank you for everything that you do to advocate on behalf of your various constituencies for your organizations. We'll just do simple by raising hand, but our first question will go to Congresswoman Ross.
Oh, well, thank you. Well, thank you so much to the Democratic Women's Caucus for always lifting up the important life experiences of women. And we've done several of these hearings, and every single time we learn something, but more importantly, we give you an opportunity to tell us what it's like, what your lives are like. And that's what being representative is really all about. I also want to point out a few things that we've been talking about before I ask my first question. As we know, in addition to all the cuts and the bad things that we've been hearing about, this economy has caused rising unemployment rates. And it's thrown small business owners into turmoil. And those small business owners are dealing with the tariffs. They're also more likely to be using the Affordable Care Act because they can't get that employer-sponsored insurance. And of course, if they're restaurants or hair salons or home services, frequently they employ our immigrant communities. And so the Trump administration, in addition to attacking women, is attacking our small businesses, and that is throwing things into chaos.
And as we talked about, so many people right at the holiday season are finding out that they're gonna have to pay more for their health care. So just as they're trying to scrape something together for their children, they're realizing that their budget is completely blown for 2026. And many of them are choosing to give up healthcare for themselves, which is just so dangerous and counterproductive. It can lead to medical debt. It can lead to bad outcomes for them and their children. So my first question is this. What types of difficult healthcare decisions will families be forced to make if Congress does not extend the Affordable Care Act? And what kinds of things will families have to give up? And so I'm going to ask Sarah to talk about that first, but then Luna and Chloe, if you want to.
So I think families are really going to make a choice between paying extremely high premiums or going uninsured. And that is absolutely terrifying, especially when we consider how things are moving in terms of household debt. People are shifting costs into debt products in a way that is really terrifying to me. I'm particularly worried about people using credit and things like buy now, pay later programs to pay for things, to shift money around, especially during the holiday season. And so I think that is one of my biggest fears, is that they will either go uninsured or they'll use other means to pay for the necessities.
Luna, tell us what you think this will do. You deal with older people who really are relying on Medicare, Medicaid, and sometimes the Affordable.
Absolutely. I see it every day, calls when members do call in and say, I'm gonna have no money next year. I'm gonna be dry. So me personally, I can even say I do rely, as Sarah mentioned, on credit. Unfortunately, this is keeping me paycheck after paycheck and having to live with, the high housing costs. It just went up. In the third year I've been living in the same residency, it went up $100, then $150. And I don't know, but I will share this, $2,000 a month for rent is astronomical. And I don't think it's affordable anywhere. On top of balancing childcare. And to stick to the topic, yes, I unfortunately have to use my credit cards many times to just purchase groceries. And having to balance, having to pay for something for like a pair of glasses for my child that sometimes it's not really affordable with what they give with the the Medicaid. I do rely on Medicaid for my children and I, and it's sometimes not enough to cover the pair of glasses. So I do have to come out of pocket, and even dental visits, it was a battle just for myself to get mouth guards, which I had to file an appeal because it's a medical necessity. And it was my third appeal before it got approved. Sometimes you just can't give up right away. It was gonna cost me like $400 just for one little mouth guard, which I cannot afford. So it is a very major challenge for many Americans and many mothers and elderly. My neighbors have chronic illnesses, and I mentioned them because they talk about it all the time. It's very unaffordable for them. They're not able to provide food on the table with the cost of medications, the co-pays that they have to pay, and the deductible. They have to, and luckily there's a cap on what the max out of pocket is. Should they not have that, they would have been taken even more advantage of. But it is still an astronomical number, and I feel like those numbers should go down because they're living as well, paycheck to paycheck. Some of them rely on Social Security. My father is a person that relies on $900 a month on Social Security and takes care of his mother, who is my grandmother, who has dementia, who also relies on Social Security and housing and food stamps. And this is why I'm here today, because I need to advocate for them as well. Of course.
Okay. Yeah, I
Hey, I gotta go to the doctor again. Currently dealing with some medical issues personally, and so I was like, oh, cool. The specialists are gonna cost my parents quite a bit of money. And again, I just feel guilty about doing that. I mean, I'm grateful that I'm on my parents' insurance, but oh my gosh, I'm like, wow. And also like now my parents are sometimes like, okay, you can pay the copays, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't want to pay the $60 copay. But yeah,
And you're all at your parents'.
I am on my parents'
Thanks to the Affordable Care Act.
I think it every time I go to the doctor. I'm like, thank you, Barack Obama and the Affordable Care Act.
Okay, thank you.
Chloe, I want to introduce Bill at Brandy at the University of Michigan and Michigan State University. Folks came in, just never clicked to me until I came with the house because I had talked to him about this meeting afterwards. But, continuing care, especially around mental health. So your therapist is in your home state.
Yes.
You're out of state for college. You have to be in state for the insurance to cover. Like, it's ridiculous. And I was like, there has to be a bill, somebody needs to do it. I was like, this is unbelievable because with telehealth today, and maybe you're on, vacation or some emergency, but also, especially for our, I don't want you to have to go find a new therapist, right? And so, this came up, we were talking about actual staff benefits and how come students, it's much more difficult for students to access food assistance, especially when, they're away and everything, and they want to be able to have fresh foods and stuff, because some of the food they didn't have campus is like kind of junk food, right? Yeah, no, I asked my son so many things. This is the second year after I meet with folks, but I mean, Chloe, talk, because I think a lot of my colleagues don't know this, and some maybe do, but the fact that even though you're on your parents' insurance, you have to get care in your home state, so you have to wait to come home. I mean, I know some people aren't, they're like, I'm not stupid, like, if they're doing telehealth and but they shouldn't have to, because they're worried and they're anxious about, we didn't on VPN, and this, I know this is what they think. But, yeah, it should be possible, it's the same doctor, same care, you're just out of state because you're going to college, you shouldn't not be able to access, that mental health support.
Yeah, so it's actually interesting to think about because so I scheduled a phone visit with my primary care provider, who I love, back in California. And I get almost done telling her my entire health story. And she goes, Chloe, where are you currently located? And I was like, DC. And she was like, so we have this new thing where I'm not allowed to provide you medical advice if you are not physically located in the state of California, which was pretty insane because I was like, what am I supposed to do? And thankfully my parents have Kaiser and they have Kaisers here. So it was pretty easy, but I still had to go out, find a whole new doctor. They also changed the records across with Kaiser, Mid-Atlantic and Kaiser SoCal, which was insane. So now I had to literally go recap the entire thing to my new doctors. And it's just such a mess because they can't share information across borders of states, which is ridiculous. It's not like it's a country or something. It's still my files. And then also with telehealth, I had to not go do therapy.
Yeah.
Because, and here in DC, it's very hard to get like telehealth, and being a college student also, it's like, well, what am I going to do? Just do this in my dorm with my roommates around? It's hard. And so, yeah, it's really difficult just to be an out-of-state college student. And insurance is so weird. And sometimes, my parents have good insurance, and it's also like, well, we're not going to cover that. And so I'm currently navigating trying to find a dentist too, and optometry, and just because it's so difficult, and I go back less and less, and I shouldn't have to think too much about all these
just don't
things.
go to the doctor.
Yeah.
Because they just.
Yeah, it's really difficult.
Well, I think the bill's ready, I'm gonna withdraw, but I think next week I'll make sure that they know about it, but like, I'm open to maybe, if there's anything else that we could be doing, because again, you'll be surprised how surprised I was. Right. I had no idea.
Yeah.
And I think that's why advocacy here is so important, and people sharing their stories, because I would have never, ever imagined.
Yeah, it surprised me, it surprised my parents,
And
it surprised me.
college students don't know until they're away.
Yeah.
just kind of get paid. Okay, I can't give you medical tests. Oh, thanks.
You know, we try so hard to try to come out of the situation and create a successful future
For you and your family, and they make it so much difficult that you have to pick and choose on what steps to do next, or be in a position where you will have to lie about your location. You know, why should we be put in those positions? Why can't things just be easier for working families that are just trying to do what's right and take care of their health and their family's health? I just, it blows my mind. I'm sorry. I feel for you guys having to deal with this every day.
I know, so,
It's our job.
I know.
Yeah.
Our job to stick up for you.
Oh, I appreciate that very much.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, great.
So I'm sorry I missed your conversation.
You know, that's the thing that I didn't realize about DC, is that they like to schedule everything, all the good things, all at the same time. So I appreciate that, and I also, yes, absolutely, thank you so much. But also, you know, you're a mom of three, I'm a mom of three, so I'm sure your story would have resonated so much, even just hearing about the stuff that you're dealing with right now, not only for your immediate family, but everyone that you're working with. I think that I really appreciate like the extra information that you give us about individual groups. So like when you started speaking and we're talking specifically about African American women and how they're more vulnerable in our community in Arizona. It's really Indigenous women, all women of color especially. The hurdles are so difficult to overcome. And so I appreciate that you all are getting out and talking to us about things that we could be doing to advocate better, because I think it's so important. I also have a daughter in college, and she's a freshman, so she lives in state, and I have to hound her to do things. So I can only imagine. I'm glad that you're taking the initiative to take care of yourself, because it would be very easy, especially with all the hurdles you've had to go through, just like, you know what, I'm not gonna go to that optometrist, I'm just gonna squint when I'm looking at things. I think that it's scary, but one of the things that resonated with me and really what I heard from you, and I'm sure just how you've been responding, is the advocacy that we need to do. We need to be so much stronger for communities that cannot speak up for themselves. And every hurdle that we have to work through here legislatively makes it easier for you to be able to manage your lives, manage your family's lives, advocate for different groups. And so if there is anything that you see would be more helpful that we haven't had an opportunity to ask you about, I'd really appreciate that. And then any data that you have from any realm on, these groups of people that we all have in all of our communities that we need to really highlight their stories more. Because I think that that's something that they like to lump everyone together as like millions of people. Like, okay, well, let's talk about this group. And specifically, let's talk about women, because we are the ones that, for the vast majority of families, have the burden of helping our families navigate through that, our parents, our grandparents, we end up being the caregivers. I'm the eldest of three, so I'm also the bossiest. But, and then, this idea of affordability is so scary because, I have 3 kids. And Christmas is coming around the corner, and it's not gonna happen in the same way. And I think that if we really need to have better conversations with our families and our children about what your expectation is gonna need to change, how it's gonna need to change, because the economic realities are really difficult. It really is. We wanna give to more people. Some of us are privileged enough to have something to give, but for those families who are struggling, it's very, very hard. I'm very grateful for my 11-year-old.
Because she is very mindful of my spending, and being that she's the oldest, you would think, Mom, I want this, Mom, I want that, but she's very nonchalant and says, Mom, I don't need anything. And I'm like, there has to be one thing. Well, you know what? I would like a pen for my cell phone so that I can draw on my device. I pass on my cell phone to them whenever, I get a new one, because unfortunately we cannot afford cell phones for everyone unless they're from Walmart, and it has to be used through Wi-Fi. So I'm very smart. Oh, yeah.
It's on like the old phone or.
Yeah, yeah, my 8-year-old doesn't need a iPhone, but if I do get one, he's gonna get my iPhone 11 that my 11-year-old has passed on to him. So he'll get a burger. I am the coupon lady, so I live off couponing. I shop at CVS, being that I didn't know Aetna and CVS were a relationship until I started working for Medicare. And I tell all my members, listen, I am going to eyeball every great detail and I'm going to inform you properly for you can make the best decision for yourself. And they're very happy after the call. So I recently was able to get an extended offer to be part of the 10-year team and stay with the company because I was actually through a contractor company. So I'm very happy to go home and actually have more stability, I would say. But I did wanted to mention, Sarah, Chloe, thank you for that because I feel like my 11-year-old is going to approach that sooner than later, and you're actually creating that path in that direction. And I'm happy to have you here and speaking in regards to that because of that will help me and my child along the way. And she's 11, turning 12 in April, and she's already became she made it to the National Honor Society in her elementary year. I am so proud of her. Yes, I brag about it all the time. And she's also high honors in the first quarter of the year. So I am so impressed, and I just keep telling her, keep up the good work. Before I came here, her PE teacher sent me an email. Hey, your daughter, X, Y, and Z, just giving her kudos. And I'm like, what PE teacher does yeah, it's on my to-do list to respond to him. So, but it was just took me by surprise.
It sounds like she's 11, turning like 18.
Yes, yes,
The oldest daughters, I say that.
yes.
Yeah.
All eldest daughter.
Right?
Well, it's just so nice that she makes she's creating that path so my other little ones are following her footsteps as well. I'm like, I'm glad you came the oldest. It's not the attitude. Because essentially will help me along the way. So thank you, Chloe.
Yeah, of
I
course.
appreciate you standing here today and everyone listening.
You did a fantastic job. I actually have one additional follow-up question for you, Chloe.
Yeah, of
You did
course.
a great job talking about, the impact of student loan availability and changes to you. Obviously, the Trump administration has recently come out with some pretty significant caps to student loan borrowing, and I wanted to ask, what you're hearing from fellow college students. How aware are they of it, and to what extent is it potentially impacting professional decisions that they're making at this stage?
Yeah, of course. So I know personally, I have 3 semesters left of college. I am so grateful that the money my parents and my grandparents have saved for me will barely get by a couple thousand to be able to pay for my college, which I'm so grateful for. But before I decided to push up my graduation by an entire year, I was really scared because I was like, wow, how am I going to pay for this an entire more year? And there was other things that went into my decisions to push out my graduation, but it also was like, well, this is also a really good economic decision because I won't have to take out more student loans. And then Trump was like, hey, so maybe you can't take those loans out. And I was like, oh, well, that's not great. So I know personally that was a really big thing. And around me, I know so many people who, I go to GW, and it's not a secret that a lot of people, we get a lot of aid, but it's also a very expensive school. And so I do know that a lot of us who go into public service, we're like, how are we going to pay for our student loans and stuff if we're on a public servant's salary? There's such a question too of, my friends and I are thinking about grad school right now. And it's like, do we go to grad school? Can we go to the grad schools that we want? Can we go to get into those programs? If I get in to Georgetown, can I afford Georgetown? That's a good question. And it's something that we're really all thinking about, especially as we're going to be the ones paying. And especially, and I haven't looked honestly too much into this yet, just because I do have a few more semesters yet. But I know I was reading about some cuts that they did make to graduate borrowing. And so, I'm sure in a semester or two, I'll really need to look at that. But, just hearing about that, I was like, wow, do I really want to be going into graduate school right now? If it's not something that I need to be doing, do I want to take out on that debt? And me and my friends are currently debating this. I have friends who want to go to law school, and it's like, wow, law school is expensive. And
I'm still paying my law school.
Yeah.
And I'm 49 years old.
Like that, I was thinking law
Yeah.
school at 19, and unfortunately life had a different direction for me, but.
So yeah, just in general, I mean, like
Yeah.
it's a conversation that we have constantly on campus and
Yeah.
within my friend group too. I mean, a lot of us pay for everything off of internships, so please pay your interns. Let me just say, the currently unemployed intern, like, you know,
Yeah.
having to have saved my money from my last internship to get me through the last. I mean, I haven't gotten paid since my last internship ended, and I probably won't until February. So trying to make sure that I can get through the next couple of months
Right.
without asking my family for money has been really important. And
Yeah.
then me and all my friends, we talk about it all the time, you know, and
Yeah.
trying to strike this balance of being young college students and having fun and, you know, going out and doing things.
Yeah.
And thankfully we live in Washington, D.C., where we have a lot of free things to do, but it's still, the things add up. And so,
Yeah.
you know, even if, you know, cost of living, like even if it's not loans directly, I mean, we still have to go pay a lot of money for Chipotle. You know, dining hall food is really bad at GW, so.
Girl, it seems like it's bad everywhere.
This is true, this is true.
They need to hire my mom or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
My son called me 2 months in, I swear it's the
Yeah.
funniest thing. And Adam like doesn't voluntarily call me unless it's politically related. And he goes, "Hey mom," I said, "Hey," he goes, "Mom, they don't believe in salt here." I said, "What?" I said, "Hey, what?" He's like, there's no taste to the food.
Yeah.
Wow.
that should be congressional policy, isn't it? Kind of Yeah.
Well, on that note, we're going to be called into votes relatively soon. So I'm gonna close it up with some closing remarks. But before I do, I wanted to turn it back over to you and ask, you know, you've got 5 members of Congress here, you know, in a minute. What do you want us to know? What do you want us to know about you know, the economy, young people, working families, you know, so that we can best do our jobs to serve and represent you? We'll start with you.
Something that really impacts me personally, being that I recently went through health scares and being that cancer research is also on the board. You know, I feel I'm more into a holistic approach when it comes to my health. Being that I'm a SNAP recipient, I am not always able to afford healthy food, especially with 3 children. I have to buy snacks so the kids can take to school. The school choices are not always the best. Unfortunately, they're not very healthy either. So
Yep.
to me, that's very impactful because I feel like my kids aren't getting the nutrition that they deserve.
Yeah.
Being that we're not able to have the proper pay rate as moms, we're having to juggle multiple jobs. And with that being said, it just makes it very difficult for me to even sometimes cook a healthy meal for my kids because of time. Time is a challenge in every single thing.
Yeah.
So being that we're not able to make the proper amount of income with just one job is a very tough situation to be in.
People ask me all the time, like, what's the number one thing we can do to lower healthcare costs? And I talk about an initiative that I'm actively involved in surrounding food as medicine, right?
Right.
Making sure that you have healthy choices. And it's just not something that is conceptualized in our current, you know, healthcare system. And I think you spoke really powerfully to that. Just because votes are going to call, I'm going to keep you guys to 1 minute in the closing remarks, but
No worries.
know that we're hearing you. So thank you.
Of
Yeah.
course.
Sarah.
I would just like to say thank you for the fight you all put up over the ACA and HIS premium tax credits. And I hope that continues. And as we, you know, are dealing with these rising costs of health insurance, I would also like to say, in addition to lowering costs, like many of you have talked about, please don't lose sight of raising wages, which is so integral for that other side of the affordability equation.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I guess if I had to think of the first thing I thought of was like, you know, listen to it's really hard to be a college student and a young person right now. And so I really appreciate all of you for taking the time to, you know, really hear from us young people. I think especially college students sometimes get a little overlooked. You know, you think about like the little kids and you think about like senior citizens and it's like, oh, what about the college students who are young adults who oftentimes we have to figure things out on our own to actually be adults, which is hard. Also, I guess, yeah, healthcare is expensive. Things are expensive.
Yeah.
I bought a toothbrush today and it was $5 and I was like, what is this?
Because it's so expensive.
I was like, why is one toothbrush so expensive at CVS? I was just floored. Yeah.
to the dentist.
Yeah, I usually get the free ones.
Yeah,
Grab a few.
and they will,
They
they'll
will
give
give it to
you,
you.
yeah,
Yeah.
they'll give you a few extras.
Yeah, and interns should be paid more because
They should, yeah.
some of us survive on those salaries, so.
Yeah. Well, thank you. We hear you from all of those, all the different ways that costs are rising. We're also working to lower costs. I know our entire caucus is committed to that. I founded the Lowering Cost Caucus in our Congress as well. So we are taking all of this and putting it into ideas for ways that we can keep things more affordable, and from your economic analysis to your individual stories. It's just critical to inform the policy that we do, the work that we do here. So one thing that we want you to know is that every single mom, every single young person, all working families across America, we hear you, we see your struggles, and we do roundtables like this because we want you to know that we're fighting for you. So thank you for your testimony, thank you for your time, and we appreciate you being here today. Thank you all.